I really appreciate you guys with the intros, and it's so nice to see so many ladies from so many different stores, so many different roles here. I want to really quick shout out our ambassadors for Women of Hudson. Can you guys stand really quickly? I want to just give you guys a little round of applause for what you do. Thank you so much. I'm up here making you guys introduce yourselves to each other, but you guys are at the stores, you guys are creating these cultures, you guys are forming these communities, and really that's what Women of Hudson is meant to be. And so the last person I'd love to introduce is Beverly Edge, but we need this before she starts. Can you make sure it works? So I'd like to introduce you to Beverly Edge. So Beverly is the COO and Chief Counsel over at HHM. That's a lot of acronyms there, I know. But so HHM is our CPA firm, another acronym. But we've been with HHM. Hudson has partnered with HHM since before I started. They're a great organization, and she's been there for 2.5 years. When she started, she brought in some resource groups for the ladies there at HHM to make sure they grow and they get better. And I know this is something that she's really passionate about. So it's something that she's really passionate about. And I just want to really quickly, while she's getting mic'd up there, I just want to say, I hope you all remember what we're here for, because the food is amazing and great, right? And the people are amazing and great. But I'm so blessed to be in a room with ladies who are just interested in getting better. And that's what we're here for. But I want you guys to remember something, that it's not easy. No. Guys, I don't know if you remember last month, we learned about how to grow through pain, where things don't always happen the way you intend for them to happen, but instead you use that to get better instead of like being stuck or creating excuses, right? So sometimes your audio doesn't work right, and sometimes people aren't mic'd up on time because, I didn't do what I was supposed to do. But we move forward, and that's what we're doing. But I want you guys to remember one thing. I want you ladies to remember that this isn't easy. It's not easy. And so you guys are all here because you ladies, they say I say guys too much. You ladies are all here because you're committed to getting better and growing yourself. That's why you want to be here today. That's why you want to continue to learn these things. We talked about how growth is not automatic, right? We have to work at it. We talked about how to create our habits and make sure that they're pointing us in the right direction. We talked about making sure we're in an environment that promotes our growth. We talked about growing through pain. But none of these things are easy. And so I just want to push that thought out of your head right now as you continue on this journey with us and you say, well, I was reading that book, and then this thing happened to me, and so, I couldn't do the thing that I thought I wanted to do anymore, right? Because you're going to run into roadblocks. It's going to happen. It's not an easy thing to do to continue to move forward, and it's something that you have to actively pursue. So growth is not coming and filling you up. It's something that you have to actually work towards and make an effort with. And so you guys being here, I know it's a lot. I know you guys all do really, really hard jobs at the dealerships. And I know it takes a lot for you to get out of there and come here and fill yourselves up. So I want to say thank you for doing that. And I want to say welcome, Beverly Edge.
So my name is Beverly Edge. As Faith said, it's hard to follow her because she's so, no. All right. A lot of pain in that. And there is a lot of pain through growth. This is something I rarely do, so you all are going to have to bear with me. In my prior life, I practiced law for 20 years. I always had just one-on-one conversation with clients, so that's my comfort zone. Speaking with one person and building a relationship. So speaking with a whole group of people is something that's painful for me. And that's why I said yes. when Faith asked me to come, my immediate thought was, no, I'm going to run and hide under my desk. But I said yes because I'm trying to grow. And really, after hearing each of you all speak, I'm not sure we need to even have this presentation. You all are such strong, confident women. Everyone spoke so well and seemed really comfortable, so that's great. So, as Faith said, I'm with HHM CPAs. How many of you have had contact with someone from HHM? Hopefully, yeah, all the corporate office, yes. Someone said you all had an invoice to pay. So, yeah, I hope everyone that you've met from HHM has represented us well. I've so enjoyed it there. As I said, I practiced law for 20 years, and I really have a soft spot for our dealership services group and our dealership clients because that's what I did. I grew up representing dealers as I started practicing law, and that was primarily what I did. I helped dealers buy and sell stores and helped them as they were running their stores with their contracts and anything they needed, really. And so my favorite clients were my dealer clients, and that's how I got to know everyone at HHM because we had a lot of mutual clients that we would work together with closings and things. And so there was just a great relationship, and I knew there were great people there. So that eventually led to me representing HHM as well. And so when we expanded into Memphis, I handled that, and we handled several tuck-ins of other firms and bought real estate there. And so I was really familiar with everything, and eventually they just brought me on over. So that's what I'm doing now as COO and General Counsel. So that was a big change for me. I still do, some legal work as General Counsel, but getting to know the accounting industry and how things work, that's really hard change to make. And in a little bit, we're going to talk about faking it until you make it, and that's what I did when I went to HHM. It was overwhelming, and change is hard, and so I just had to fake it until I made it. It was interesting. I was having a conversation with our managing partner just a few months in, and we were some women were having a book group. We've been trying to do things to try to get the women together and advance them into leadership. We do have an absence of women in leadership, so we're really trying to push that. And he was asking what the book was about, and I told him the title, and it was about confidence. And he was like, "Oh, you could write a book on that yourself." And it was so funny because at the time I did not feel confident. I was faking it. And so it really is just a matter of pushing through until you become what you're trying to be. Something else that was interesting, and during that time, one of my children is very outgoing. And, he never meets a stranger, is very confident. The other one, which is just the older one, is not. And during that time when I was struggling with my confidence, I had gone down to visit him at college. He played basketball in college, and things weren't going well. And I walked into his room, and on his bulletin board, he had a note up there that said, "Be irrationally confident." And I just thought it just spoke to me. So you all think that whenever you're struggling, just be irrationally confident. I think that's a good motto to kind of go by. All right, so I'm losing my things. In my mind, when I was preparing for this, I thought I had a podium right here that I was going to have everything sitting on. So today we're going to talk about the power of body language and nonverbal communication and just confidence in general. And we all know that nonverbal communication has a strong influence on how others see us, but it's also has a strong influence on how we feel ourselves, just as I was talking before. And it is something I'm passionate about. As I mentioned, at HHM, there is somewhat of an absence of women in leadership, and so we really are trying to address that. So that was kind of one of my jobs in coming in at HHM, was to try to facilitate, bringing women along and setting a good example. And so that's something I try to do while I'm there. Some of the tips that we're going to go over today. I try to hold myself accountable and set a good example for the women at the firm, so that, that helps them progress in their careers as well. So we all know, well, I guess research shows that women do have a harder time with confidence than men. They feel less powerful than men. And some of that even just relates back to size. Men are in general larger than us, louder than us. So that influences this as well. And women are also harder on themselves than men. Some research has shown that when a job is posted, that men, if they have one of the qualifications, they're applying for the job. They're trying. They're putting themselves out there. Women, if they don't meet even just one of the qualifications, many times they won't apply for the job. So that really explains some of a graph I'll show you in a little bit, shows that men and women are pretty much even at entry level, but by the time you get to the C-suite, there's a huge difference. And so even that fact is something that influences that, because women won't put themselves out there to apply for a job. So remember that, whenever you're looking to be promoted and you're looking at the qualifications, put yourself out there, and maybe you'll get that job. That also goes along with the interview process. And I so see this in myself, even in conversations. If a man goes to an interview, when he walks out, you ask him how he did, and he's like, I killed it. I did so well. I'm going to get that job. But a woman many times will walk out and say, oh, I said this awful thing. There's no way they're going to call me back or hire me. So even today, I know there will be things like, gosh, why did I say it that way? Or I messed up here or there. But you really just have to move on. Just, stop the negative self-talk and move on. And, a lot of times, I'm sure I'm not going to be the thing on your mind 2 weeks from now thinking, I can't believe she said that. You've moved on, so I should too. So we're going to talk about a few things to help us with both feeling more confident in ourselves and having more of a presence and affecting the way people see us and feel about us. So the first is taking up space. So pay attention to how you're sitting right now before you do any moving. Are you, shrinking into yourself, or are you out taking up space? How would you all feel? The middle? Yeah. So one thing that's important to do is to just expand. Take up space. I mentioned I had my 2 kids and how they were so different. I lectured to one constantly. They could be sitting beside each other, and even though the younger one is, actually not as tall as the other and everything else, he always looked bigger because he was always, his shoulders were back, his head was high. They could be sitting right beside each other, and you would think he was, several inches taller than the other. He was, he would always kind of hunch over and kind of fold into himself. So I was constantly lecturing, take up space. And he does now. So finally he listened to his mother. He's 23 and starting dental school next month. So again, sit up straight, lean back in your chair, but don't slouch. If you're leaning back, you don't necessarily have to lean back if you're at a table. You can sit up straight. But if you're leaning back, look relaxed. Put your arms on the arms of the chair, and that kind of spreads you out. I try to think about that when I'm sitting in meetings. Up until recently, I was the only female partner at the firm. So, I felt like in meetings with all the men, I needed to really, make my presence known. So that's something to think about. And then even with your possessions when you're at a meeting, just spread your things out. Let everybody know you're there. All right, handshakes. On a handshake, so how many of you, when a man comes to shake your hand, sometimes does the little finger handshake? And sometimes you can't avoid it, but really you want to be sure that you're palm to palm, you're firm. It shows the other person that you're confident and assertive. And it was difficult for me during COVID. I don't know how many of you shake hands with people on a daily basis, but I found it very difficult when we all stopped shaking hands. It seemed so awkward whenever you would, see somebody or meet them, and you're just like, hey. So I'm very thankful that we're shaking hands again. But something I have found, and I don't know if you all experience this as well, but I have found if I'm with a group of men and another man comes in, sometimes they'll shake hands with the men, but then just kind of say hello to me. How many of you have experienced that? So what do you do, typically? Good. That's exactly what you should do. You need to take the initiative and make sure that, and a lot of times I think maybe they're just uncomfortable. And so if you do that, that makes them feel more comfortable and lets them know that you're there. The hand steeple is something else that I ran across in my research about this. And I actually, I don't do this, but I think I might start doing it. Because it said that this conveys confidence and authority, and maybe even that you're evaluating others in the room. So maybe it puts them, kind of gives you a little step above. So this is something that you can do sitting or standing. So since I don't have two hands, somebody, yeah. So if you're sitting, sit. And then you can do it a couple different ways. In your lap, yes, like that. Or maybe your forearms on the table. So there are many different ways. And it also gives you something to do with your hands. So even just standing up here, I'm going to put this, Faith's showing us. Or even just a little lower if you're speaking. You could, So, I don't know. Apparently that makes you feel more confident. And just doing it, I felt a little more confident, especially on a table with my forearms on there. So that's something else that you all can try. So eye contact, and we all know that. Our parents told us that growing up. I really don't think that's much of a problem with people in this room. You all seem very outgoing and love to be around each other. So some tips that I ran across was not to break eye contact too soon. And sometimes it does feel a little awkward and you look away, but you really should just try to keep that eye contact whenever you're speaking with someone. And a tip that I noticed was that try to notice the eye color of everyone you meet if you have trouble maintaining that eye contact, because that's something that you're focusing on while you're talking to them. And then the extra 1 second eye contact when parting ways. I found that interesting, and I found it interesting because I feel like I do that sometimes. And Faith and I were talking about at the grocery store, or just meeting people out. I've really been focusing, and the reason I found it so interesting that she said it, because she's been doing it too. Like a clerk at the grocery store, when they're checking you out, actually look at them and talk to them. And I know that doesn't really have anything to do with confidence, but it is about getting that connection with someone. And eye contact really does help you do that, just in life in general. So I think that's a great thing. And it really probably makes that person feel good as well. Project calmness and control. So I know that you all are super busy, and how many of you find yourself when you're stressed just going 100 miles an hour, walking really fast down the hall, seeming very flustered? How many of you do that? Yeah, I find myself doing that too. And I actually do catch myself when I do it. I'll be walking 100 miles an hour down the hall, and I just make myself stop and slow down. As a leader, that's not a good example, and that's not letting, when you're all in a flurry, it makes other people nervous. So really you should, walk confidently, not at a turtle's pace, but slowly down the hall, long strides, and, head up. I read something one time that it should be like there's a string attached to the top of your head, because I always find it difficult, keeping my shoulders back. And it's really, I don't think it's as much about that as just standing tall. And one thing that I read once that always stuck with me, I don't know why, it gave Angelina Jolie as an example. And really, I watched some videos, and she does do a great job of this. She's just very graceful. She walks, confidently, not in a rush. So it really does make a difference when you see someone, when you're comparing to, running down the hall. And then also taking your time when entering a room, which is the same concept. If you're going into a meeting, if you walk in slowly and confidently, that just gives a whole different impression when you're meeting those people than if you're just running in, papers flying, trying to get ready. So this picture is of Amy Cuddy. She has done a lot of research on how our nonverbals affect how we feel ourselves. And she really talks a lot about power poses and how those make us feel more confident, not just look more confident. And this isn't something that you do in front of people, really. Before you go into a meeting or before you can speak. I didn't do it today. I should have. You do one of these things, and there's actually science behind it. If you do one of these poses for 2 minutes, it increases your testosterone level and decreases your cortisol level. And so testosterone makes you more, just makes you feel more powerful. And cortisone, is it cortisone or cortisol? It makes you feel calm under stress. So you wouldn't want a leader who was full of testosterone but, not able to control it. So you're offsetting it so that you can be calm under pressure but yet feel powerful. And so they did a couple of studies that, and I'm going to give you a QR code later to watch her video. It's about 20 minutes long, so we couldn't show it because it would take so much time. But it's so interesting hearing her talk about these studies where one example was an interview. And so they had some people do the power poses before the interview and some people not do them. And they went through the same interview scenario and had people watch the videos of the interviews. And the people that did the power poses were the ones that they said, that's the person I would give the job to. And they also graded on the things they said and everything. And it wasn't based on what they said, how they answered questions. It was all based on their presence. So apparently these things work. So let's go over some of the power poses. So this is in the bathroom. You're not going to do it in the middle of your meeting. So for 2 minutes, you do the victory pose. So everybody stand up and do the victory pose. So 2 minutes is a long time. I tried this yesterday. But if you do this for 2 minutes, it's going to it's going to increase those levels of testosterone, and it's going to make you feel more powerful, and you're going to go into the meeting and kill it. So the next one is the catapult, and you're still standing, but put your hands behind your head. And so that's another one that you can do. Your arms don't have to be as strong to do that one because you're not just holding them out there. And then last is the Wonder Woman pose. And so you've all seen the picture of Wonder Woman. So, yeah. And that one you can do outside of the bathroom, maybe just not as aggressively. But when you're in the bathroom, you really want to do it aggressively. Then you are. You must be. Don't cross your arms like you just did, though. That sends a bad message. So anyway, next time you're going into a meeting or have to do, speak in front of people, do these poses and see if it makes a difference for you. So McKinsey & Company is a firm that does a study each year called Women in the Workplace. And so this is the graph I was telling you about, and this is 2021 in this graph. And you can see at entry level, women and men, we have white men, men of color, white women, women of color. Women and men were almost equal at entry level. But the further you go down to manager, senior manager, VP, senior VP, and C-suite, the gap becomes larger and larger. By the time you get to C-suite, men are at 75%, and women are at 24%. There must be some rounding errors there. Yeah. So, you can see that the gap just gets bigger. And I think it's just a combination of all the little things, like the, applying for the jobs that we talked about. And some of it's out of our control, but a lot of it is in our control, and we can continue to close this gap. You can see between 2016 and 2021, there were improvements, the percent change, especially in the C-suite. So we're making a lot of progress there. There was a 27% change from 2016 to 2021 in the C-suite, which was a 5 percentage point change. So we're making progress, but we need to continue, and doing things like this is really going to help us do that. And one reason we need women in those leadership positions is that in this study, they found that women leaders were much better at helping employees manage their workload, take action to support employee well-being, and being strong allies to employees. And when we do those things, people are more likely to be happy with their job, more likely to recommend their company as a great place to work, less likely to be burned out, and less likely to consider leaving the company. So this is good for us as individuals. It's good for our companies. And women are good at these things, so they really need to be in these leadership positions in order to help these things. And really, employees have strong allies. That's where the largest percentages are. And women are strong allies, and they'll really help their companies in this way. All right. Does anybody have any questions, comments? How many of you already do some of these things? Good. I thought so, given what I've seen here today. All right. Faith, thank you so much.
That was so good. I'm impressed with how, we failed to give you a microphone, we failed to give you a podium, and yet you stood up here and delivered that with confidence. And listen, it's so, so important, right? How we connect to people, how we communicate with people, and how we show people who we are without saying a word, right? But when we talk about being intentional with our communication, our words do matter, and I just want to talk about that for a minute. So our words have the power. Has anybody said anything to you before, or even you've heard an offhand remark, and those words just stuck with you throughout the years? They just play back in your mind, and you think about them. So I was talking to my husband about this, and he was telling me in middle school he would get picked on a little bit by the kids, and somebody pulled him aside and said, "You know what? You're just ahead of your time. You're just ahead of your time." And that stuck with him throughout all the years. And what that did is allowed him to continue to be his own person, not try to be somebody else, but continue to be his own person, because he just kept hearing the words, "You're just ahead of your time. You're just ahead of your time." For me, when I was, between 8 and 10 years old, somebody made an offhand comment about somebody else's weight. It wasn't meant for me. It wasn't meant for me to hear. I heard it, though. And so this comment stuck with me throughout the years as I've been growing up, as I've been going through my journey and my weight journey, which never ends. The closer I got to this number, I would just feel terrible. I'm like, this is where it's disgusting, right? Like, this is where it's bad. And now I know, I'm old enough, I know that that's not really the truth. But those words, they just stick with you, right? A friend of mine, she has a 6-year-old daughter, and on the way from the mall one day, her daughter goes, "Mommy, I saw a mommy in the mall that was prettier than you, and I wish I could go home with her." And my friend looks in the mirror now, and she says, "Man, I wish I was that prettier mommy for my daughter." So none of these words were meant to change a life. None of these words were meant to stick in somebody's brain. But I'm sure that I'm not the only one where some offhand comment or something that was unintentional just stuck there, right? Good and bad. No, I don't need to bring the room down here. But as we talk about being intentional with our communication, that is what it means, right? When we say words, we don't know how they're going to affect somebody. So please, when you talk, think about that. Words have the power to start and end wars. Words have the power to marginalize or free an entire group of people. Our words determine, one kind word can change somebody's day at the right time. One negative word can really send somebody over the edge. You never know where they're going to be. And so our words determine our actions, our thoughts, and the way we feel. And since words determine the way we feel, we have the power to make people feel the way we want them to feel with the words that we say. That's pretty powerful. Yeah? Okay, so there's an organization. It's called More Love Letters. I have a clicker. Oh. This is the QR code to the Amy Cuddy video. Watch it when you get a chance. It is really good. I did watch it. And it's in your workbooks. Anyway, thanks. There's an organization called More Love Letters. This organization takes nominations for people that need a word of encouragement or some kind words, and they post them up on their website. It's really very simple. They post a little profile of these people, and you can go to their website and just write them a note of encouragement or something kind, and they switch it up every month, so it's maybe 4 or 5 people. You can go on there and you can look through their profiles and send them a letter. So what we're going to do for our little breakout session is we're going to write letters. What I want you to think about is there somebody that you know that needs a word of encouragement or something kind said to them? And if so, we all have little packs of stationery in front of us. There are pens on the table. So I want you to decide either somebody that you know that could use a kind word or some words of encouragement and write them a letter, or choose one of the profiles that are listed in your workbook. So we listed, I think, a few ladies in there that could use a kind word. Their stories are in there. So just think about that. Write a note. If you put the notes in back, if it's to one of these people, we'll mail them off for you. If it's to somebody you know, throw it in the mail. Give them what they need. It's going to change somebody's day. So I'm going to let you guys do that for a few minutes, and I'll be back. At the stores, you guys all have packs of stationery at the store levels, and so you guys should all be able to participate in this as well. continue writing if you're still writing. Make sure that you write who your letter is going to on the outside of your envelope, and then if it's going to one of the people from the website, and then drop it off at that table on the way out, and we'll make sure that it gets mailed. But guys, I hope it felt good to write down a kind word to somebody today, because I know it makes me feel good. It changes my whole attitude if I can say something nice to somebody and see their face light up or see that it matters. So thank you for doing that. We're going to talk a little bit about different types of communication. So I have some friends who have agreed to help me up here. So I'm going to call you ladies up. You know who you are. I don't have to call your names. We're just going to stand. Is that okay? Here, come over here. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I have Megan here, I have Tammy here, I have LaShonda here. We're going to talk about different types of communication, different ways that we express ourselves, and those different types that we're going to talk about are passive communication, aggressive communication, assertive communication, and as women, our favorite, passive-aggressive communication. So my ladies up here are going to tell you a little bit about what it means to, I just want to say really quickly, I feel like especially as ladies, there's sometimes a really fine line in there between being aggressive and being assertive, and making sure that you are for asking for what you need and not being just a bitch. So we're going to go through some scenarios. I'm going to have the ladies up here kind of tell you what the different types of communication look like. And then we're going to go through some scenarios, and they're going to respond as their type. And then you as an audience are going to give me your best passive-aggressive response to these different scenarios. All right? So, LaShonda, you are passive. Tell us a little bit about what it means to be passive.
So as a passive woman or person, you typically are somewhat shy, soft-spoken. You tend to avoid eye contact with others. You don't really speak up for yourself a lot of times. You often will put others' needs or wants or things like that above your own at your own expense. So a lot of times it makes it easy for others to take advantage of you or walk over you where you feel like you may be a doormat or no one cares about how you feel or your needs, but in reality you're not really expressing your needs and how you feel, and that's kind of where that comes from, because they may not intentionally be trying to do that because you're not communicating your needs. That's what happens.
Thank you. Megan, you're going to tell us about what it looks like to be aggressive.
Yes. Okay. This was very hard for me because I'm not aggressive. I'm very soft-spoken, but aggressive. They are very frustrated easily. They're typically loud. The other person is really being bullied in the conversation. An aggressive person is more concerned with their wants and their needs than other people's wants and needs. Let me see what else I have. Just disrespectful, not willing to compromise. Their way is the right way, no matter how much you try to convince them. And they're going to say whatever they need to say just to get you to be quiet and listen to their opinion on it. So.
Absolutely. And then Tammy stepped in last minute here for me, so I just want to say thank you for that. But tell us what it looks like to be assertive in our communication.
I have to do this first because I am a nervous wreck standing here. So I am not normally assertive, but an assertive person listens without interruption, clearly states needs and wants, and is willing to compromise. They will also stand up for their own rights. You have a confident body and tone, body language and tone, and good eye contact. Very difficult for me.
Yes, but we're all learning, right? So with a passive response, we're more concerned about how the other person feels than what it is that we need, right? And with the aggressive response, we're only concerned with how we feel. We don't care about how anybody else around us feels. And with the assertive response, which is where we want to be, in the middle there, we make sure that what needs to happen for us happens. But we also care about this other person that we're in this conversation with, and we're willing to compromise, and we're willing to be confident about what we said. And then, listen, I don't even have to tell you guys what passive-aggressive looks like. It looks like that silent treatment that you gave your husband the other night. It looks like, it looks like sarcasm, sabotage. You act like you're going to help somebody, but you're really not helping them, or you talk behind somebody's back. So you ladies, as I go through these scenarios, we're going to listen to what a passive response might sound like, an aggressive response, and an assertive response. And then you guys are going to give me your best passive-aggressive response there. So our first scenario is your boss asks you to stay late while everybody else leaves. You're always the one who stays late, and tonight you have plans. LaShonda, how are you going to respond to that?
I had plans, but I guess I can stay. That's no problem.
Megan, how are you going to respond to that?
Okay, here we go. You always ask me to work late, and I'm not doing it again tonight. I have my own plans, and you're just going to have to find somebody else.
And Tammy, how are you going to respond?
I have plans and will not be able to stay this evening.
Thank you. And what is our best passive-aggressive response to your boss asking you to stay late when you have plans? If you didn't hear Emma, she said, I have nothing better to do. Sure. Count on it. All right. Our second scenario is your partner left a mess in the kitchen and you're too busy to clean it. LaShonda?
Well, I'm going to say it's real soft-spoken because, I'm passive, so it's okay, honey. I'll take care of it.
Every time I come in the kitchen, it is a freaking mess. It'll just have to stay like that until someone else does it because I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah.
Can you please clean the kitchen tonight? I'll clean it the next time.
Thank you. Can I hear our best passive-aggressive response when your husband leaves dishes all over the kitchen and you just don't have time to clean it? How many dishes get broken in that? How many dishes get broken that time? All right. Scenario 3. You're at a restaurant, and the server brought you the wrong dish. We know you're vegetarian, LaShonda.
It's okay. It's no big deal. I'll just move the meat over to the side and eat it anyway.
I clearly ordered chicken, and does this look like chicken? No, it looks like fish. You asked me what I wanted, and I said chicken, so why do I have fish?
Excuse me, you brought me the wrong dish. I ordered salmon.
I got her.
Thank you. Okay, what is our best passive-aggressive response when the restaurant brings you the wrong dish? Listen, I know you ladies can do better than that. I don't know if you can't hear me. Like, is my mic on? She said, guess I'll just die tonight because I'm allergic to seafood. She says, it's coming out of your tip. I said, I'm never coming to this restaurant again. They're terrible. All right, so last scenario. A friend showed up at your house uninvited. Usually you'd be happy to let them in, but this time you are so busy.
It's always the same thing. You know, it's no big deal. Just come on in. I'm happy you're here. Just come on in. I'm happy to see you.
So I've said, I can't believe you just showed up like that without even calling me. I have my own life, my own plans. The house is a wreck, and there's no way you're coming in. You need to call next time.
You cannot come in because I'm in the middle of doing chores. I really need to get this done.
Listen, this is the last one, so I need to hear it. I need to hear your best passive-aggressive response to that friend who just showed up at the house. You didn't know they were coming, they didn't text you, and you have stuff to do. Listen, can we have a round of applause for our ladies up here? I think that was great. Thank you. But I'm just gonna say one more time, the line that we want to be at is very fine. We don't want to be a doormat for people, and we don't want to care just about ourselves. Like we're not going to be very effective in communicating, period, if we're too aggressive in the way that we put our words out there. So I'd just like to recap here when we talk about what it looks like to communicate with intention. We want to be clear. We want to have clarity in what we say to somebody else. We want to make sure that they understand our expectations and they understand what we're saying. The conversation I have with my boss is going to look different than a conversation I have with my 17-year-old goddaughter, because she's not going to understand the words that are coming out of my mouth. If I say the same thing to my boss as I say to her, I've got to get down on her level. I have to communicate with her in a way that she's going to understand. Same goes for every single one of us, especially you that are in sales. I know good and well that you do not talk to every single customer the same exact way. You meet them on their level, right? And so we have to be very clear. We have to make sure that any barrier to communicating as far as like our language, how we speak, is out of the way. Make sure they know what we expect. Secondly is to have a positive attitude. A positive attitude rubs off 100% of the time on the people around you. A negative attitude also rubs off 100% of the time to the people around you. So if I want to effectively communicate with you and I come to you aggressively or angry or in a really bad mood, do you think that you're going to be open to listening to what I have to say, or are you just immediately going to shut that down? So if we want to be effective in our communication, let's have a positive attitude. Timing matters. I think, listen, for me, I think this is so important. I know when I can go to my husband and ask him about that vacation that I want to take, or when I can go to my boss and ask him for a raise. You can't just spout anything off at any time, although sometimes I have to learn that lesson the hard way. It's really important the time that you have that conversation. And the same goes if we're talking about it in the context of an argument. Sometimes it's not the best idea to say what you think right then and right there. It may be a very valid point, always a very valid point, right? But sometimes the timing matters. Maybe it makes more sense to let everybody's emotions cool down a little bit, and then you guys have the effective conversation. Right? Be confident. Beverly talked about this a lot. It's important. If we're confident, then we're very clear with what we want. People understand what we want. And people, if I come at you and I have a conversation and I'm just like, I think that this is what we want to do, and right, like, I'm not going to be clear at all to you. You're going to have no idea what it is that I want. Well, did she really want this, or did she really want that? So when we have these conversations, come with confidence. You guys are so super duper amazing in here. Like what you do every single day, the stories that I get to hear about you and from you, like even before I get to meet you, like you guys are fabulous, doing great things. Hold it in your posture. Hold it in your voice. You guys are amazing. Be confident. Connection. I think that this is the most important thing in regards to communication, is making sure that you're connecting with somebody. We like to say a lot that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. What do you know about the person you're having a conversation with? Do you know what drives them? Why would they even be listening to you or having this conversation with you? Why is that important to them? I think that that's important for us to know. So make sure you make that connection. You're going to be much more effective in your communication if you can make that connection with somebody. And like Beverly talked about, that eye contact, I think it's so important. And it's not something that comes natural to me. I was telling her that I had to like force myself when I go into a grocery store to like look into the eyes of the cashier and say hello to them, because I just don't. I'm just going about my day. I'm always so busy just doing this, doing that. I'm, bagging my stuff up. I'm looking at my phone. What's the next thing? Not really effective if you want somebody to take you seriously. Actively listen. I think this is the one that's most difficult for me. It is so hard for me to listen to somebody because I just have so many things that I want to say back to them. But I wrote down some tips. These are tips for me, right? So these are the tips. Listen with all of your senses. So don't be looking at your phone. Don't be distracted by something else. If you're listening to somebody, listen. Your eyes, your ears, the other senses. Anyway, show the person you're tuned in. We can do that by body language, right? Making the eye contact, making sure our body is turned towards them. Make sure that person knows that you are listening to them and you're not concerned about everything else that's going on around you. Summarize or paraphrase what they've said back to them. That shows them that you heard them and that you're listening. And it also helps us retain, because we really only retain 25 to 50% of what we hear in a conversation. I don't remember any of y'all's names. So, anyway. That was a joke. It was a joke. I do. And you have name tags. And then... And finally, don't interrupt. I know you have so many important things that you need to say to this person, but we're listening to hear and we're not listening to respond if we're listening actively. And then trust. Make sure you build trust with that person. If you say things and you don't follow up on what you say, nobody's going to care what you have to say. Don't make promises that you're not keeping. Make sure you build trust with that relationship, and then you're going to have more effective communication there. And then finally, above all else, be kind. You don't know who's listening. You don't know whose life you're affecting or changing. So I think when we talk about being intentional with our communication, it really means be kind. Make a point. Be intentional about saying something kind to somebody every single day. Do it with every way you communicate. Be kind to people. And that's all. Thanks.